Story right now, learning of a deadly attack in the capital of Turkey.
On March 13, 2016, people in the Turkish capital Ankara heard a powerful explosion in one of the city's busiest streets. The blast killed more than 37 people and injured many others. It shocked the country, but for many observers the question was not what happened. It was who carried it out. The attack was widely linked to Kurdish militant groups, and while this bombing made international headlines, it was only one incident in a long series of violent attacks connected to the Kurdish conflict in Turkey. But to understand why attacks like this happen, we need to step back and look at a much bigger story, because behind these events lies a deeper issue, the long and complicated history of the Kurdish people. So who are the Kurds? Why do they not have their own country? And why have they been involved in so many regional conflicts? In this video, we'll explore the history of the Kurdish people and how their situation developed across modern borders. But before we continue, if you enjoy clear and simple explanations of global politics and history, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. It really helps the channel grow and allows us to keep making videos like this. Now, let's begin. The Kurds are an ethnic group who have lived in the mountainous region between the Middle East and Western Asia for centuries. Most historians believe they are part of the Indo-European family of peoples, meaning they are linguistically related to groups like Persians and Europeans. Today, Kurds have their own language, culture, traditions, and historical identity. However, unlike many other large ethnic groups, they do not have their own independent state. Instead, the region often called Kurdistan is divided among four countries: Turkey, Iran, Iraq, and Syria. The term Kurdistan itself simply means land of the Kurds, but it is not an official country. Instead, it refers to the general area where Kurdish populations live. This geographic division is at the heart of the Kurdish political question today. For much of history, the Kurds lived under the control of larger empires. At different times, their lands were ruled by Persian empires, Greek forces after the campaigns of Alexander the Great, and later Islamic states. Most Kurds eventually adopted Islam, and today the majority are Sunni Muslims. One of the most famous Kurdish figures in history is Saladin, the Muslim leader who led forces against the Crusaders in the 12th century and became ruler of a large Middle Eastern empire. However, despite their long history, the Kurds rarely had an independent state of their own. In the modern era, most Kurdish regions became part of the Ottoman Empire. Interestingly, the Kurds often enjoyed a degree of autonomy under Ottoman rule. Local Kurdish leaders were allowed to govern their own areas as long as they remained loyal to the empire. But this situation changed dramatically after World War I. The Ottoman Empire was defeated, and its territory was divided among new states. At first, there were discussions about creating a Kurdish state, but those plans never fully materialized. After the Ottoman defeat, a military officer named Mustafa Kemal Ataturk led a movement to establish a new Turkish republic. Through the Turkish War of Independence, Ataturk pushed out foreign forces and created the modern state of Turkey. However, this new state was based strongly on Turkish national identity. As a result, millions of Kurds suddenly found themselves inside a country that defined itself primarily as Turkish. From the perspective of Kurdish nationalists, this was a major turning point. Their lands were now divided not only by Turkey, but also by other new states in the region. By the early 20th century, Kurdish populations were split between several countries. This created a difficult situation. While Kurds shared language and culture, they now lived under different governments, each with its own policies toward minority groups. Some Kurdish leaders tried to achieve autonomy through politics. Others believed armed resistance was the only option. In Turkey, Kurdish political and cultural expression was restricted for many years. Kurdish language and identity were heavily suppressed during parts of the 20th century. In response, armed groups eventually emerged. One of the most well-known is the Kurdistan Workers' Party, often known as the PKK. Founded in 1978, the PKK launched an insurgency against the Turkish government. The group argued that violence was necessary because Kurdish political rights were limited. However, Turkey and many international governments classify the PKK as a terrorist organization because of its attacks, including bombings and assaults on civilians. The conflict between the PKK and the Turkish state has lasted decades and caused tens of thousands of deaths. The Kurdish experience in Iraq has also been shaped by conflict. During the rule of Saddam Hussein, Kurdish areas faced heavy repression. One of the most infamous events occurred in 1988 in the Kurdish town of Halabja, where chemical weapons were used, killing thousands of civilians. This attack was part of a wider military campaign known as the Anfal campaign, which targeted Kurdish communities. These events are widely considered among the darkest moments in modern Kurdish history. The situation began to change after the Gulf War in 1991. International intervention created a protected zone in northern Iraq, allowing Kurdish leaders to establish a self-governing region. Today, this region is known as the Kurdistan Region. It has its own parliament, government, and security forces called the Peshmerga. While it is still officially part of Iraq, it operates with significant autonomy. The Kurdish story in Syria changed dramatically after the Syrian civil war began in 2011. They established autonomous zones and became key U.S. allies in defeating ISIS. However, this reality shattered in late 2024 with the collapse of the Assad regime. Following the failure of negotiations to integrate into the new state, Kurdish forces suffered a crushing defeat against the new Syrian authorities under Ahmed al-Shara. Consequently, they lost 80% of their previously controlled territory. Today, Kurdish-led authorities face a dire struggle for survival, squeezed between the new leadership in Damascus and ongoing security pressures from Turkey. Today, the Kurdish population is estimated to be between 30 and 40 million people. Despite this, they remain divided across multiple countries. Their political situations vary. In Iraq, Kurds have significant autonomy. In Syria, Kurdish areas have uncertain political futures. In Turkey and Iran, Kurdish political movements continue to face major challenges. For many Kurds, the dream of an independent state still exists, but creating one would involve complex regional politics, including the concerns of several powerful neighboring countries. So the Kurdish story is not just about one conflict or one country. It is about a people who share language, culture, and history, but whose homeland became divided by modern borders. Over the last century, Kurds have used different strategies to pursue their goals: political participation, regional autonomy, and sometimes armed struggle. Some efforts have achieved partial success. Others have led to long conflicts. And today, the Kurdish question remains one of the most complicated issues in Middle Eastern politics. So here's a final question to consider. If a large ethnic group shares a language, culture, and history, should that automatically mean they deserve their own state? Or is the modern world simply too interconnected for new borders to solve old problems? Let me know what you think in the comments.